I ran financial services for technology for London Stock Exchange and State Street for quite a while. And I can tell you one thing. One of the most important things that we struggled with was the massive amounts of data that you're bringing in, our ability to persist that data and make sense of that data. And one of the biggest problems we had was you needed to, every group, when they wanted to do something with that data, and you guys probably experienced some of this, we would make copies of that data. So we had hundreds of databases running in our organization. And when you do that, right, you go in and change that data in one spot, and you have the problem of reconciliation because now all of your other databases are out of date. That's a major problem. So what DDN is offering really is the ability to bring in that data, as Sven said, and be able to reference it in any protocol. So you're getting SQL queries, you're getting S3, you're getting other GCE types of capabilities, and have the ability to keep that data in one spot and be able to query it in one spot instead of needing to make copies is extremely critical. Not only in financial services, but in any vertical that you can look at. So if we think about it, and this applies to all other verticals, this is not just a financial services problem. If you look at it, fraud detection is a major thing, applies it both in banking as well as insurance and other areas, right? It's hundreds of billions of dollars that are wasted on a yearly basis in this space. What you need to really think about is how we can enable that, and that's what we're concentrating on, is above the stack enablement of use cases so that we can deliver value to our clients. So you can look at financial services, you can look at high frequency trading. What's common in these things? The commonality lies in the fact that you have streams of data coming in, petabytes of data coming in, and then you have to make sense of it very quickly and be able to respond to it. So what ends up happening is that in these scenarios, it's not just your ability to use data, meaning get or read data, but your ability to persist that data extremely quickly. This was a blog that appeared on Blocks and Files that Chris wrote. It shows that DDN has significant performance improvements over almost any other competitor that's out there. And especially when you look at write capabilities, it's almost 100x of most other competitors. That becomes extremely critical when you think about AI workloads and where you're doing model checkpoints. So it's not just data ingestion, but you have to do model checkpoints occasionally. That is a very intensive workload. So most people think that AI workloads are read intensive. Actually, it ends up being that almost half of the pattern is write intensive as well. So that's really critical to understand where platforms can help you with both of those access as well as persistence capabilities. What you'll see is that we've run a whole host of benchmarks that show that when you're looking at almost any other platform, whether you're looking at IOPS or whether you're looking at metadata access capabilities, which is extremely important because when you think about it, the metadata is the way you find the pertinent data that you need to be able to leverage. So if you have the ability to look at metadata and be able to get to the data that is important for your analysis, that's how you do it. And any platform that delivers the quickness of that access time is very critical. Jensen himself spoke about that if you look at any of the NVIDIA workloads, they are doing checkpoints on a very fast basis. They do it occasionally. Sometimes you look at AI workloads that are doing that almost on a 5-minute basis, depending on how critical that model is. What you'll see is that DDN ends up providing 30% faster checkpointing capabilities. That directly correlates to your return on investment. Because at the end of the day, if your GPU is delivering 30% more capability than it would with a different platform, you're looking at power, you're looking at space. All of those things start to add up on for your total cost of ownership and the return on investment. So that being said, we can concentrate on a couple of use cases that we have been helping clients with. This is a fraud detection use case that applies not only to payment processors like the Visas and the American Expresses of the world, but to large banks as well as insurance providers. And what you'll notice is that if you think about an application coming in and querying or simply your automated application coming in and asking for some level of information, that information flows through different types of logs and different types of data that it needs to correlate. And that data correlation then goes into model creation and model training. That's where you're spending a lot of the times. And that model training is actually doing a whole host of writes and persistence down to your data layer, which then ends up triggering other things like model validation and inference itself. So the overall capability that we are trying to impress upon you is the fact that when you're looking at the platform, you need to think about how that platform actually allows you to deploy in a hybrid environment, meaning whether you're deploying on-premise or you're deploying within any of your cloud providers, can you do that and be able to natively use that access protocol, which is, if you're deploying with AWS and you're using S3, or you're deploying with Google and you're using GCS, your ability to be able to naturally leverage that protocol and be able to go into any cloud is absolutely critical. One of the reasons why some of the banks, let's say, would use a particular provider like GCS is because you may get a lot of credits from Google. However, what we found in the past was very quickly a different provider like AWS may come in and give you something that's really interesting. So when you're trying to move from one platform to the next, it ends up becoming a very difficult proposition. So if you have the ability to go across those clouds, including on-prem, that gives you the ability to deploy your workloads in a way that is very difficult to do with almost any other competitor, if you will, that I have found. And at the end of the day, really, it's all about return on investment. Okay, so if you have the ability to deploy your infrastructure and be able to save time and footprint, and be able to access that data and be able to persist that data very quickly, it very quickly ends up becoming a TCO discussion, which is really, at the end of the day, that is really what matters. So hybrid protocols, being able to natively access information and get relevant information back is really what matters, because simply getting information, garbage information, your models aren't going to deliver the type of return for you that you're looking for. So being able to provide information that is relevant and being able to inference off of that is extremely critical. And that's really where we have found that most of our clients are starting to really benefit from the types of things that Sven was talking about with the platform itself. We'll be around to answer any questions you have, and thank you very much.